Good afternoon and many thanks for joining us. You're watching QTV and we're broadcasting live from our studios on Kairaba Avenue. And this is the news with me, Ansmane Sonyasi. Well, here are the main local, international and sports news headlines. Gambians are believed to be among victims of a fire outbreak in a 19-story Bronx, New York building on Sunday morning that left 19 people dead, including 9 children, and left others with serious injuries. The Ministers of Justice and Finance, Dauda A. Jallo and Mamburin Jai, have reiterated government's commitment to making diaspora voting a reality. A joint committee of the National Assembly on Monday scrutinized the 2021 elections bill to repeal the Elections Act to bring it in line with best practice to ensure free and fair elections. In international news, the sub-regional bloc ECOWAS on Sunday announced sanctions against Mali, which include freezing government assets and suspension of all financial assistance from ECOWAS. And in sports news, the 33rd AFCON got underway in Cameroon on Sunday, where the hosts Cameroon and Cape Verde won their opening games. Stay tuned as we bring you more on these and other stories. And we begin this bulletin with some sad news. A horrific fire outbreak on a 19-story Bronx building on Sunday morning has left 19 people, including 9 children, dead, with 63 others sustaining injuries, out of which 32 were critically injured. Well, other reports say the victims are mainly Muslim immigrants from the Gambia. Jawa took a close look at the story and he now reports.
In what officials describe as the worst in the city in more than 3 decades, one in which 87 people died in an intentionally set fire at a Bronx nightclub in 1990. Sunday's fire has left 19 people, including 9 children, dead, with 63 others injured, many of them seriously, reports said. The city's new mayor, Eric Adams, in the first of 2 news conferences, described the numbers as horrific and promised that the city would provide support for the victims, many of whom are Muslim immigrants from the Gambia. We are all feeling this, and we are going to be here for this community to help them navigate through this, he added. Mr. Adams also urged all injured and displaced victims to seek help and assured those who may be undocumented that their information would not be passed to federal immigration authorities. Governor Kathy Hochul, who spoke at the second news conference, said that she would include funding to assist victims with the cost of housing and burials in her budget proposal next week. She too described the incident as a tragedy and one of the worst in the history of the city. According to the New York Times, the Fire Department Commissioner, Daniel A. Negro, firefighters found victims on every floor of the 19-story Bronx building. He said the 63 people got injured after occupants of the 3rd floor apartment, where the fire started, fled without closing the door behind them, leading to smoke spreading throughout the building. This made the place dark for people to properly find their way out. He added that residents had heard the fire alarms but did not immediately react because they had grown accustomed to frequent alarms in the building. A spokeswoman for the owners of the building said the smoke alarms were sometimes tripped by people smoking in the stairwells, but she said they were unaware of any problems with the devices and that the alarms had sounded properly during Sunday's fire. We are devastated by the unimaginable loss of life caused by this profound tragedy, the property owners said in a statement. The building, like the surrounding neighborhood, is home to working-class families of African American, African and Hispanic descent, some of whom use federal Section 8 vouchers to pay the rent. Residents describe the building as a melting pot of races, religions and languages. Officials said that those displaced by the fire were being provided hotel rooms through the American Red Cross until they can return to their apartments or find permanent housing. The cost of the fire is under investigation. An online fundraising campaign has raised more than $180,000 for the victims of the horrific fire by early Monday. The GoFundMe fundraiser was organized by Salim Drame of the Gambian Youth Organization, GYO, a local charity who wrote in an Instagram post that several of its members were residents in the 19-story high-rise building at 333 East, 184th Street in Tremont. No names have yet been released of the dead and injured, and Gambians are anxious to know if their relatives are among the victims. Reporting for QTV News, I am Yahya Jab.
The tragic news there, and our prayers and thoughts are with the victims and their families. Now, the Ministers of Justice and Finance, Dr. A. Jallow and Mamburin Jai, have reiterated government's commitment to making diaspora voting a reality. They made these remarks in response to concerns raised by members of the diaspora, notably Professor Jibril Fall, at the recently held Stake in the Nation Forum. More in this report. Diaspora voting has been one of the most contentious issues frequently raised within the country's political arena. Despite being regarded as the eighth region of the Gambia for their contribution to national development, especially in terms of remittances, a sizable number of Gambians residing abroad have for decades felt disenfranchised by successive governments, with many charging the lack of political will on the part of previous governments to allow Gambians abroad the opportunity to vote in elections. The Barrow government, to its credit, attempted to make this a reality. However, for various logistical reasons, it never happened. This left diaspora Gambians frustrated, and many yet again left ruing the lack of opportunity to exercise their franchise. At Saturday's Stake in the Nation Forum, renowned international scholar Professor Jibril Fall and several other diaspora Gambians yet again raised concerns including diaspora voting and encouraged government and the IEC to make this a reality.
I live in the diaspora, so there is a big secret you are not aware of. That is, I didn't have the vote. Mr. Jai is looking at me. We've had so many discussions about this matter. But today, we've begged the Minister of Justice to come and talk to us about it. But however you look at it, there is no way one can begrudge democracy.
Responding to these pleas, the Ministers of Justice and Finance, Dr. A. Jallow and Mamburin Jai, respectively, gave assurances of government's commitment to making diaspora voting a reality for Gambians living abroad. This, they say, is provided for in the Constitution.
Our current Constitution is indeed quite clear on the right to vote. It provides that every citizen of the Gambia being 18 years or older and of sound mind shall have the right to vote for the purpose of elections of President and National Assembly and shall be entitled to be registered as a voter in a National Assembly constituency for that purpose.
As enshrined in our National Development Plan, the government of the Gambia recognizes and values the Gambian diaspora as an important factor and actor in national development.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Justice also revealed that there are plans to revive efforts to usher in a new constitution, as promised by the President, who had indicated during the presidential campaign leading to last month's election that he would endeavor to bring in a new constitution before the end of his current mandate.
I am therefore confident that once this process got underway, we will have the opportunity to actively debate once more the issues of diaspora voting, but not only voting, also other key issues touching on the diaspora.
The population of Gambians living abroad is said to be 140,000, equivalent to about 7% of the population. This is a significant number for a country of a little over 2 million. If diaspora voting is realized, it will be a historic moment, as it would be the first time in the country's history that its citizens residing abroad will have a chance to participate in national elections. Ansmane Sonyasi for KTV News. Now, a joint committee of the National Assembly on Monday scrutinized the 2021 elections bill to repeal the Elections Act to bring it in line with best practice to ensure free and fair elections. The session is to finalize and adopt a report for consideration at plenary. Maulamin Choi tells us more.
This is a joint committee which comprises 3 committees, namely Regional Government and Lands, Ombudsman and IEC, and Human Rights and Constitutional Matters. The Joint Committee convenes to put the final touches to its draft report on the 2021 Elections Bill, which was tabled in March last year by the Minister of Justice. Following its second reading, the proposed legislation was referred to the Joint Committee for further scrutiny. Suwaibu Toure, the Vice Chair of the Joint Committee, tells us that one of the legal concerns that the bill seeks to address is attestation during voter registration.
For example, attestation was a big concern because people can just write something and say we are attesting, an alkali attesting for somebody, and that person, is giving a voter's card. Now, what we want to do is to look at that practice, how it has worked, whether it has created some difficulties for the registration officers, whether there were some anomalies during the registration because of that. And if that is the case, then we'll have to be modifying it to make it a bit more harder so that foreigners and people who are not eligible to be registered are not registered.
The Joint Committee had embarked on a consultation with electoral stakeholders across the 7 administrative regions. This included political parties who sent in position papers for consideration by the Joint Committee. Another point of concern for reform is about legal issues on citizenship.
We'll have to look at the Constitution and make sure whatever that is in the electoral law conforms to the Constitution, so that there is no ambiguity in it, and it should not be difficult for people to understand.
By the time the bill is passed and given assent by the President, these legislators want to make sure that funding for the IEC from donors does not compromise the electoral body's independence before and during elections.
We have traditional donors that are interested in democracy, they are interested in free and fair elections, etc., etc. We know that when they give funds, they are not going to do anything to dilute the quality of our elections. So those quotas we can receive funds from. But any other quota that's going to derogate the independence, the independence of the IEC should not be accepted. So those are the things we are really, really concerned about.
Another concern that has sparked debate and a legal challenge before the Supreme Court is diaspora voting. The repealing of the Electoral Act will open the door to diaspora voting and define mechanism for implementation in the next electoral cycle.
We are putting both ballot and token, so that whatever is feasible for the IEC, they'll be able to utilize that. So the way we are creating this law is to put the two, so that IEC will not have any excuse now for not going to the diaspora to register Gambians.
The National Assembly is scheduled to resume in February, when the Joint Committee targets to submit its report at plenary for approval, during which the bill will be considered and read for the 3rd time. To wrap up its task and for further consultations, the Joint Committee will meet on Saturday to complete its report of findings and recommendations on the bill for consideration by the National Assembly. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, QTV News.
We now take a short commercial break, but the news continues when we return.
Looking for the fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, QMoney and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your QMoney account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any QMoney agent across the country to receive your payment for free, or use the money immediately to buy credit, QPower, and other QMoney services. It's fast, safe, and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 133. QMoney, Sinu Calpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Well, thanks for staying with us. Be reminded you're watching QTV and we're broadcasting live from our studios on Caraba Avenue. This is the news with me, Ansmane Sonyasi. Well, over now to international news. The sub-regional bloc ECOWAS on Sunday announced sanctions against Mali, which include freezing assets of the Malian government and the suspension of all financial assistance from ECOWAS financing institutions. Mali's transitional government describes the sanctions as illegal and illegitimate. Alusise reports.
The ECOWAS leaders who met in the Ghanaian capital Accra earlier on Sunday, 9 January 2022, took the decision in response to what they say is the failure of the transition administration to meet its deadline for transfer of power to a civilian government. The Gambian leader, President Adama Barrow, was represented at the extraordinary summit by his Vice President, Dr. Aïssatou Touré. At the last ECOWAS summit in Abuja, Nigeria in December 2021, sub-regional leaders expressed their concerns about the transitional process in Mali and advised the transitional authorities there to respect the 27 February 2022 date to hold an election to restore democratic rule. However, addressing an extraordinary summit convened on Sunday in Accra, Ghana, Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo, current chairperson of the authority, informed the summit that he had received a delegation from the Malian transitional authorities proposing to extend the transition period to December 2025 instead of next month as originally agreed.
The official proposal submitted to me by the transition authorities under the hand of its head indicated that the transition period should run for 5 years. Subsequently, by a letter to me dated 7th January 2022, 2 days ago, the head of the Malian transition stated that the period had now been modified to 4 years. Excellencies, it is this decision that we're meeting to review to determine whether it complies with the agreement reached on 15 September 2020 and embodied in the Transition Charter, and more fundamentally, whether it conforms to the community principles as enshrined in the ECOWAS Supplementary Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance.
At the end of the summit, the authority said it found the proposed timeline totally unacceptable and agreed that effective immediately, Mali is cut off entirely from all ECOWAS institutions, according to a communique issued by the heads of state. It ordered all member countries to shut their land and air borders with the landlocked nation and end all commercial transactions with it. The sanctions also include freezing the Malian government's asset and suspension of all financial assistance from ECOWAS financial institutions. The military junta in Mali has responded by condemning sanctions imposed on the country, describing them as illegal and illegitimate. In a statement, it said ECOWAS stands contrasted with the efforts made by the transition administration and its readiness for dialogue to find a compromise. The junta said the sanctions constituted clear violation of ECOWAS laws. It accused the bloc of being used by extra-regional powers with ulterior motives. In retaliation, the Malian government announced the withdrawal of all its ambassadors to ECOWAS member states and shutting its land and air borders. It also vowed to take all necessary measures to ensure the normal supply of citizens' needs. The Mali junta went further to warn against any attempt to deploy foreign military forces on their soil, in apparent reference to ECOWAS' decision to activate its standby force. To this effect, it called on its defense and security forces as well as the population to be vigilant and mobilized. It also invited friendly countries and institutions to render support in response to the situation. Reporting for QTV News, I am Aliou Cissé.
Well, we now take a look at some exciting sports news. The 33rd AFCON got underway in Cameroon on Sunday, where the hosts came from behind to defeat Burkina Faso 2-1, and Cape Verde won 1-0 against Ethiopia in the second game in Group A. Our sports reporter Maud Gajaga has been monitoring, and he now reports.
After a colorful opening ceremony featuring dancers, dignitaries and fireworks, Cameroon got off to a fine start. However, Burkina Faso took the lead against the run of play when Cameroon seemed to be in control, only to be stunned by Gustavo Sangare's spectacular volley, which hit the roof of the net, with Aston Villa forward Bertrand Traoré providing the assist. Host Cameroon equalized after a VAR intervention when skipper Bertrand Traoré fouled Anguissa in the box. The tackle looked clumsy, and the referee eventually awarded a penalty after consulting the VAR technology being deployed at the AFCON for the first time. Cameroon's captain Vincent Aboubakar converted the spot kick to level for the host. Burkina Faso's defense looked shaky, and they conceded another penalty, this time the referee pointing to the spot without needing VAR, following a rash tackle in the box. Aboubakar again making no mistake in sending the keeper the wrong way to give Cameroon a 2-1 win in the first half at a time. These provoked scenes of wild jubilations from fans in the stands. In the second game of Group A, Cape Verde defeated Ethiopia 1-0 in a hard-fought game. Gary Rodriguez crossed from the right after the chance seemed to have gone, and Julius Tavares powered his header home from unmissable range. It proved to be the only goal of the game. The game also saw the first red card awarded to Yari Bear of Ethiopia, leaving his teammates to play more than 75 minutes of the game with 10 men. Despite this handicap, they still had some decent chances to equalize, and Cape Verde did not do enough to capitalize on their one-man advantage. Mamudu Gajaga, QTV News.
And we hope to bring you scores of other games in our tonight's bulletin. Now also, as the Gambia's Scorpions brace themselves for their AFCON debut in Cameroon, with their first match against Mauritania on Wednesday, we speak to supporters about their expectations and predictions for our national team. Babukar C has the rest of that story.
The Scorpions are the last West African country to qualify to the AFCON and surprised many big guns by finishing top in a group that consists of Gabon, DR Congo and Angola. Cameroon 2021 will for the second time witness 24 countries participating in the tournament, with the Gambia drawn in Group F against Mauritania, Mali and Tunisia. The Scorpions will first lock horns with fellow West Africans Mauritania on Wednesday, January 12th, in a game that fans predict will be the easiest in the group.
I believe we can make it far in this competition because considering the fact that this is the first time that we are going to AFCON, and it's a dream that we have always wanted, and the team is enthusiastic and they have the support of the fans, and I believe with the right tactics that the coach should use, we can make it far. If I were to predict, I believe we can make it out of the group stage. I think.
Lamin Del Fadera is a local sports journalist who will be watching the game in the Gambia. He shares his expectations of the game.
I'm not expecting much from the boys, even though we all know in reality our preparations are not the best of preparation ahead of the Africa Cup of Nations. And I think, judging from the previous record that we have seen during the international friendlies, that is the FIFA window, we haven't got the best of results. Even though the coach will argue that, we lost 3 and won 3. But I think, the expectation might be high on the perspective of the fans. But I think in reality, we have a lot of work to do. We are in a very, very tricky group. Mauritania, Mali, Tunisia. Mauritania have already tasted the competition. That is their second time. Mali also was there. For this, their 12th edition. We have seen Tunisia, 2004 winners. So in reality, I think we'll go into competition as the least favorite, the underdogs.
Haji Drame, a football fan, also shares similar views on the expectations and call on the fans not to expect too much.
We should not be overconfident. I think we have to be very realistic. Let us go and enjoy ourselves. Whatever comes there, we learn from there and start preparing for our future events like the AFCON. Because we are going with players who will not be qualified or will not be able to play in the next AFCON even if we make it. The expectation should not be that, we are going, Gambia can win a trophy or Gambia can go to the second round or upset can happen in football. We've seen, small nations go to big international championship, beat big clubs or big teams. In the Euro we saw it, in Africa is the same thing. We can also do that, but the expectation from the Gambians, I've been following, the interviews and the comments of Gambians. It seems like many of our team. Some are even saying that we have the team that can go to the second round. Some are saying that we can go to the quarterfinal. So you are putting more pressure on the players.
How about those that believe that the Scorpions should make it to the quarters or at least the semis?
If we can get at least 3 points in the group, or that is the minimum, that perhaps we might be lucky to make it to the 4 best third place, finishers to make it to the next stage, because you take it step by step until you reach the semi-finals. But to ask for the semi-final, I think that will be a very, very big dream.
As the Scorpions prepare to mingle with Africa's best in the AFCON, many fans have not been happy with the team's preparation in Qatar, as the coach was unable to have his full squad in Doha, while other players tested positive for COVID-19. Babu Karsi, QTV News.
Well, we're wishing the Scorpions all the best of luck in their opening game tomorrow in Cameroon. And I'm afraid that's it for this edition, but before we take a leave of you, here's a recap for main headlines. Gambians are believed to be among victims of a fire outbreak in a 19-story Bronx building on Sunday morning that left 19 people dead, including 9 children, and left others with serious injuries. The Ministers of Justice and Finance, Dauda Ejalo and Mamburi Njai, have reiterated government's commitment to making diaspora voting a reality. A joint committee of the National Assembly on Monday scrutinized the 2021 elections bill to repeal the Elections Act to bring it in line with best practice to ensure free and fair elections. In international news, the sub-regional bloc ECOWAS on Sunday announced sanctions against Mali, which include freezing government assets and suspension of all financial assistance from ECOWAS. And in sports news, the 33rd AFCON got underway in Cameroon on Sunday, where the host Burkina Faso and Cameroon, on Cape Verde rather, won their opening games. Well, that's all for this edition of the news. Do join us in the evening for more news. Until then, thanks for watching.
Send mobile money service boo leen gën a tàmm dafa